Another day, another FPL pod. Jack, how are you?
Josh, very well, thanks. Yeah, really good, really good. So, yeah, I'm well. Been a tough week with the old Super League stuff. I was getting really stressed about it.
Yeah, why think about FPL, when there's bigger things in the game at the moment, but we'll see. It feels like that's just been put to one side for me. I don't know what your thoughts on it, but I think
Yeah, I mean, I
that's
could do
not.
a whole podcast on that. I was fuming. It did. I will say, it made that Leeds Liverpool game seem strange to me. It made that
Yeah,
watching that was weird. But now, once they all started dropping out, like the day after, it was a relief.
yeah. As a Liverpool fan, it was like being the pantomime villains for a game.
Very difficult
Yeah,
for the fans. Very, very difficult for the fans.
but hey, let's see what happens over the coming weeks. But for now, more important things to focus on. What do we want to cover in today's pod, Jack? Just roughly.
So today we thought we would, as it's our first ever pod, we thought it would be a nice idea to pay homage to the FPL resources that we've been using over the years that have helped us as FPL managers, and that have, I guess, inspired us to do this podcast as well. We've been consuming these resources for years. They've grown and grown in number, and I'd say increased in quality over the years. And so for newcomers to FPL that are just starting, or people that have been playing for the years that might not know about some of these other resources, I think we've just collated the ones that we're aware of, that we consume, and we thought we'd just review them and give our thoughts on them.
Yeah, I know exactly where you're coming from. Like, there's so many resources out there. That's what we want to do, trying to outline all of these, give our little take on it, our opinion for what it's worth, and then hopefully point people in the direction of what are the most important and essential ones to look at if you're looking to succeed in FPL.
That's it, Josh. Yeah. So what we've done is we've broken it down into different platforms, because everyone has their own preferred way of consuming content, don't they? And I hate the term consuming content, but everyone has their favorite way of staying up to date and informed and consuming media, for want of a better term. So breaking it down into the different type of platform, I think, was helpful. And then so we'll go platform by platform, going through the big players in each platform and the most popular podcasts, the most popular YouTube channels, go through them all, give our thoughts, and it's a subjective view. We've got our favorites, some we don't like. Some of them are really popular that I don't like. Some of them aren't as well known that I absolutely love. So it's a very subjective thing, and there's no any favoritism, is just our subjective view, isn't it? I think it's important to say.
Good, nice early disclaimer there. That's what I like to say.
Yeah.
This is just
we don't
our opinion.
we don't know any of these guys. We don't know. Never interacted. Well, I have interacted with a few of them a little bit, but we don't know them, do we?
No, exactly. All right. So moving on, we're going to start with the contents. Number one, we're going to go, as you said, podcasts. Want to cover those. There's quite a lot out there, a lot to talk about. Next, obviously a lot of websites that store all of this information in a slightly different format that you can access online. Lots of different ways to access all of that. We've kind of lumped in some social media there as well, so you can get some news pages through the social media pages.
It's websites, isn't it? That section, it's just websites rather than news sites. I think we started out with news. It's just websites now, but yeah, websites, the second one.
Indeed. And then next, YouTube channels, so a little bit more interactive than the podcasts. Might not always be able to just sit down and watch it, but you do get a little bit more from it with all the YouTube channels as well. And then specifically, I know I said we're going to cover some social media in the websites and such, but Twitter, its own animal and beast here, because there's quite a lot of specific information you can get for these accounts that are out there. And then online tools, lastly but not leastly, to cover. So a lot to cover.
A lot to cover. So we'll go into so for each of these, we'll go through the big players in each of these and the ones we think you should give a try to. Shall we, Josh?
Kick us off then, Jack.
All right.
Podcasts.
Podcasts.
What are your thoughts?
My thoughts. So yeah, as you say, Josh, love podcasts. They've been around since the dawn of time, but they're an evergreen, ever present medium. And there are some just brilliant FPL themed podcasts out there, some of which have been going on for years, and that I've been listening to for years. The first one, Josh, let's just list them. Let's just go through them. We've got them written down. Let's just go through them.
Hit me.
So for me, the best one out there, and we won't go, this isn't an ordered best to worst. This is just a list we've written down. But the best one that I think there is a podcast called Always Cheating. And that's by two guys, so Josh and Brandon. They're two American, New York-based guys. And they host, I'd say, it's the most professionally produced, but it's also just the most entertaining, and it's one of the most valuable in terms of content. I think it covers all the bases really well. You want entertainment, you want good production value, and you want useful content. And I think these guys just cover all those bases really well, and they're a pleasure to listen to. Would you agree? I know you're an avid listener as well.
Yeah, there's a reason why we're mentioning them first, isn't it? And they're the top of our list to cover here, is because I think it was the first name on the team sheet, basically, when it came to podcasts. In terms of what we go there for, which is the FPL content, who do we want to pick, what fixtures are coming up, giving us kind of sneak peeks and hints. They've got all of that. But on top of that, as you said, the entertainment value is great. Two funny guys, and I think they do a lot sometimes to temper the kind of seriousness of FPL, which for a lot of players it is, with a kind of relaxing, enjoyable, fun side of it as well, just to remind ourselves that this is a game at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think they start every sort of season with a new mantra. They kind of try and go in with a philosophy. This one was make FPL fun again, because it had been going that way of a lot of people taking it seriously, getting a bit depressed if they're not doing well. And they're very thoughtful guys, aren't they? They're very mindful, I would say, of things, of well-being and things like that. So they talk a lot about that, and about how it's just a game. It's just a game, isn't it? And sometimes you need to hear that, don't you? You need to hear someone remind you that it is just a game. If you had a horrible game week and you're really down on your luck, I think they release one every Monday. So Monday's right at the end of the game week typically. Start your Monday morning off, listen to Always Cheating. I think they record it on a Sunday evening in America. So for us Brits, we get it in the Monday. But yeah, I can't speak highly enough of them. I think they're fantastic. If I was going to criticize them, there'd be one. I'd say it's one of the most commercial podcasts. So that comes maybe as a consequence of being the most popular and the best. They do, maybe an American capitalist way, there are some ads in there. They record their own ads themselves. They're sponsored. They have a Patreon that they plug, which might put some people off. I don't care about it because it's so good, but I guess as a disclaimer, I think it's fair to say that they are like that.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you're saying. It's hard to criticize them, and I guess the header that we want to put in this is, in my opinion, I think in your opinion too, they are the best. But I know what you mean. If we were to criticize, they are quite commercial, as you said. Depending on, I think all of the podcasts are quite long in terms of all of them, not just Always Cheating, but any podcast that you listen to. So it is a kind of thing that you're going to need to free up, like a good hour. So, but I think as you get used to them, they do cover similar segments throughout, so you can kind of get used to what content they're going to cover in each section and kind of skip through as you choose. But generally speaking, like high quality, as you said, very professional. They know what they're talking about. They say it in a very eloquent and concise way. They get the message across really well as well, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of presentation and skill on the mic, if you like, they're excellent. Back and forth, really witty. Yeah, they're the one. If you're going to listen to one, make it them. Would be to sum up, and us as well.
And us, of course.
Them. They're the bomb.
We can't review ourselves anyway.
Exactly.
So it's hard. That's a hard act to follow.
It is.
We started with the best, but shall we follow it? So next we've got FML FPL. Thoughts on these guys?
I'll go again. Yeah, cool. So FML FPL, they've been around a long time again. So they're an OG. When years ago, when I was starting to dabble in a bit more seriously and looking for content, FML FPL were there along with the Always Cheating guys and the Scout that we'll come on to. They've been in the game a long time. Again, two American guys. Now, I haven't listened to these guys for a couple of years now, I think, because I just found them to be. Though I was thinking about it, is if Always Cheating are the Justice League, then FML FPL are the Suicide Squad, aren't they? They are like rough and ready, swearing. They don't give a fuck, do they? These guys, they are, and that's part of their charm. So they'll call players out. They'll play the game very differently. They're very opinionated. They fight on air between each other. Sometimes but for me, it's a bit too much. To me, it's a bit too garish and it's a bit too negative for me. Those guys are, but they know what they're doing. They're good production wise, and they're knowledgeable about the game. I'd also say, but not for me. These guys is how I'd sum them up.
Yeah, I know we discussed a little bit like when we were planning, and I remember listening to them originally, and I think it's a case of they're a very different energy. They bring a very different energy to the Always Cheating guys, and I think it's like 100-mile-an-hour, as you said. If there could be pyrotechnics, then they would be there. And I think it is a kind of thing of, I think the first time I listened to them, I was going for a run, and it's just full on. And it is, as you said, you can't really avoid any of the content. You can't really focus anywhere else. It's just almost shouted at you. But like you said, they are knowledgeable and they do give their opinion. So, you know, if you're going to take from as many places as possible, then they do bring a lot of value themselves. But I'm with you on this. Not exactly my cup of tea, but another place to go if you're just going to listen to all of them out there.
I'd definitely try them. I'd definitely give them a go. Yeah, if you're new to it, you're looking for a new podcast, they're definitely worth trying because they're a Marmite bunch. Love them or hate them.
Love them or hate them.
There you go.
Perfect. 2 down. So on to now Green Arrow FPL.
Yes.
I'm going to have to leave this one with you because I don't think I've ever listened to these guys. So
yes, that's cool. So it's a podcast by the FPL Hub guys. So we'll come on to the websites, but the FPL Hub is very much one of two big fantasy football sites. So you've got the Hub and you've got the Scout, FPL Scout. So they're the two big dedicated fantasy football websites out there, and they're very similar. They're obviously rivals, but they have very similar things and similar types of content. So I think last year, maybe, or it might have been this year, FPL Scout came out with a podcast called the FPL Black Box, and that was with two of the popular Scout members. And then the FPL Hub, and I apologies if I'm wrong on this history, but they then mirrored that with a podcast of their own called the Green Arrow. 2-person dynamic, which works really well, I think. Works for the Always Cheating guys and the Scout guys. But again, two very knowledgeable, this time British guys. They're more stats based, I would say, than the Always Cheating and the FML FPL guys, and a bit more reserved. But they are in a kind of British way. But they're very easy to listen to. Very experienced managers, FPL managers on there with amazing rankings. So they're sort of like weird celebrities in the FPL world, some of them. But again, very insightful. I'd say it's nothing amazing and special, but it's very well done and worth a listen. And there's not much else to say on that, really. Yeah, some really good content.
Yeah, like you said, if there's anything like the websites or those two podcasts linked to the websites, then it's going to be good because the resources they kick out are top notch. So good. That's another one to follow. Let's move on to our fourth podcast. We've got Who Got the Assist.
Yeah. So Who Got the Assist they're probably my second favorite after Always Cheating. So Who Got the Assist? They're a bunch of British guys. Extremely, it's almost their thing is to be stats based. So it's quite stat heavy stuff, looking at interesting statistics like XG, XA. They were the first guys to really start talking about that. And they go even deeper than that with kind of different, coming at the game with a different angle, if you like, of an underlying stat that you might not be aware of. Very, very likable, funny guys. Tom, who's on Twitter, who controls their accounts, a really nice guy. They sometimes have different guests on that are very interesting. And it's got a more of a charming, whilst we praise the Always Cheating guys for being professional and very well produced, there's just a kind of charming air of who got the assist of it is just a bunch of guys in their bedrooms chatting. It's not, it hasn't been commercialized in that way, which is part of its charm. And back in the day, there used to be old podcasts that aren't on anymore, and it just was a bunch of guys huddled around a little microphone talking about it. And there's something really charming about that. And I think these guys retain that despite being very popular. So I think they should be praised for that.
Nice. Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. I think I haven't listened to them as much as Always Cheating, but then that is my fave. But I think, like you said at the beginning, the first thing I think about them is, stat driven kind of analysis, and not to pigeonhole them, but that's what I kind of see that as a go-to place to gather all of that and then get your conclusions.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, very good. Very well worth a try.
Excellent. And then we've got Scoutcast.
Scoutcast, yeah. So these are the OGs. These are the very first guys to start producing FPL content. A legend of the game called Mark set it up with a few of his mates, and these guys. So they've run the Scout Fantasy Football Scout website. The Scoutcast is their equivalent podcast that's been going on for over 10 years easily now. I don't know when it exactly started, and they've just carried it on now with I believe a guy called Mark hosts it now, who's really good. Celebrities of the game, if you search for FPL podcast, this will be the first one that comes up. Really good, consistently good content, great tips, great advice on who to get. Fascinating tracking the guys doing its teams. It is the staple one that most people will listen to, I think. And they kind of set the template for an FPL podcast. They're the OGs. They're the original guys. I think they're not the best in field in any area in terms of entertainment, stats, production, but they're very good at all of them. They're very solid. Yeah, and there's not much else to say. Definitely worth a listen. They cover all the bases, and yeah, you gotta respect them. Gotta respect them.
Rounded and reliable. I think that's as you said. I mean, Fantasy Football Scout, just the affiliation to that, and that kind of speaks everything it has to about them, really, doesn't it? You're gonna get a lot of value.
Defo.
Perfect. And then 59th minute from the FPL General.
Yeah, have you listened to any of these?
I have not listened to 59th minute, so inform me. I am our listeners in this case.
That's fine, Josh. Well, let me tell you about the FPL General. So he's a one-man guy, a Scottish guy, and he's one of the all-time great FPL managers. So he's, his previous ranks are ridiculous, like several top 1,000 finishes. Really, really knowledgeable, astute fantasy football manager. And I believe his podcast now is part of the Athletic sort of family that are taking over the internet at the moment. But he's a really, really likable, softly spoken, down to earth Scottish dude. And he just, again, it's a cliche, but he kind of tells it like it is. He kind of just says what he's thinking. It's just, and it has that vibe of just a guy in his attic chatting to himself about FPL. Really kind of fun. He's not like a hilarious dude, but it's quite a charming setup, and just a very almost fascinating insight into an expert's, like a freakishly good FPL player's mind. Just hearing one stream of consciousness, because it's quite rare that just one person does a podcast, and it's quite a unique setting. But very good, easy to listen to. Yeah, and fair play to him. He's doing that on his own. That's a very difficult thing, but no, to bounce off. So well worth a listen if you're after the insight of one expert's mental state, if you like, and the thought process of one guy, because that's a fascinating thing.
So I'm going to assume a lot of that is him talking about his team and his decision making, because I mean, I think they all do that. All the podcasts do that to an extent, but obviously a lot of the ones that are, have two of them or maybe more, they tend to bounce off and talk about topics and subjects at a greater kind of a bigger picture, don't they?
They do, yeah.
Which you can kind of tap into if you maybe have players or looking at players or fixtures that they're not looking at. Whereas I'm guessing with this one, is he mainly covering his own kind of team, or is it kind of getting past that?
It's exactly, yeah. And that's what I like. I have different favorite parts of podcasts. And one of them is when they get to their own teams, seeing how they've done and and the best bit, I think, is what their plan moves are. And the best bits of a podcast come out of that, I think, of like, okay, here's who's on my watch list. Here's who I didn't go for, but I wish I'd gone for, Because I think a lot of the time, certain podcasts go over the same mantras, should we go eye test or should we go stats? Should we do this? Should we do this? Should we do that? And there is a lot of repetition of content within them, something we should try and avoid. But yeah, with the general, it's very much his team, his moves, his mindset. If he has a bad week, how is he going to climb out of it? And just his own rules that he makes for himself are fascinating to hear. Yeah.
Nice one. Well, we finished the podcast section with a salute to the general. Great.
Yeah, I'll always salute him. Thank you, General.
He's good. Thank you, General.
What you're doing.
I'll listen, General. I promise, General. So next, that's podcast done. Next, news sites. So as you said, this is kind of covering websites in general. And the top of the list, not top, but first of the list, I should say, we have Reddit and its subreddits, notably the Fantasy Premier League or Fantasy PL subreddit. So talk to me. Why should one look at this subreddit? Everyone should, but why should one look at it?
Yeah. So yeah, the Fantasy PL subreddit it was the first tool it was the first online resource I started using, I think, for FPL. I'd used Reddit for years, absolute Reddit addict as many of us are. But yeah, the fantasy Reddit lends itself really well to fantasy football and the things that you want to know about. So someone's always on there posting the latest news. If there's an injury, if there's a press conference, if there's a game going on right now, you can follow a stream of the game happening. Price changes that happen overnight, there's an instant bot that posts the price changes as soon as they occur. And then, of course, you've got the chat forum element of each of those things. So you can get into good debates with people. And I'd say where it has an advantage over Twitter is Twitter. Everyone knows what Twitter's like. It's loads of noise and it's very hard to filter out what's good because of Reddit's upvoting and downvoting structure. If you just visit the hot or the popular element of the FPL subreddit, it's done that filtering for you. And so you've got the really good bits of content you need to know about, or the good, really interesting conversation topics that are going on. And so if you're going to visit one site, visit the FPL subreddit is the one I would say is the best to visit because of those reasons.
I agree entirely. Like, it's just an intense source or very gathered source of everything you need at the time that you need it because of the upvoting. As you said, like the point that you need it, it will most likely be at the top of very close to the top of the list. So right before the game week deadline is about to reach, you've got the captaincy poll, which I generally look at just to get an idea of what most people are thinking. Not really my thing, but the rate my teams as well. If you want to throw your team out there for the Reddit community to comment on, then you can do that. Yeah, I agree with you entirely. It's just very specific bits of information which you're going to look at any point during the week or during the game week itself.
Totally. And it can be hilarious, can't it, as well? It can be so funny on the rant. They have a rant thread every time the game week's ongoing. And it's so funny. People going mental about it. If you want to have a vent, just go on there, write a comment, rage. It's a great outlet.
I also I also like to use it for going to the subreddits of each team sometimes to look at their recommended, their opinion on what the starting lineups will be.
Interesting. I don't do that actually. That is good because it isn't just the subreddit of FPL. The other teams obviously all have their own subreddits.
Yeah. So especially with I'm thinking of Man City here and the bold fraud himself,
Of course,
Pep. But I still like go to their breakdown of the upcoming fixture and what they think the lineup will be. I know it's just a shot in the dark with them, but some other teams that have more nailed on lineups, they're generally pretty good.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, Reddit it's just an infinite pool of wisdom, isn't it? Really, it's a fascinating thing.
Okay, so now we mentioned it a little bit, Instagram and Facebook. So we've included this, but I know that neither of us really rely on it that much to gather information, but we obviously need to mention it. So what are your thoughts on using Insta and Facebook?
Yeah, Instagram and Facebook, I mean, that they'd be the go-to. They're almost ripe, you would think, for a great set of resources for fantasy football because there's so many people on them. They're the most visited sites in the world, aren't they? Certainly the most visited social media sites. But for me, it just feels there isn't the depth and richness of of FPL content on those. It's very much just people posting up their team and asking for quick tips on it, and it's often a rubbish team. It's not, because the content isn't moderated in any way. I think on Instagram and Facebook, it's just splurge of in the fantasy football groups on there. It's just a splurge of people just posting up their shitty teams. I don't know. It's just not. It doesn't have anywhere near the value of these other resources that we've gone over. That's at least, unless I may be missing a massive group that I should be in or something. But I feel like I would have stumbled across it now. As good as the algorithms are, I feel like it would have. I will say I'm not a big Instagram user at all. So I've still got a Facebook account that I go on, but Instagram I just haven't engaged with in the slightest. So I don't know. Maybe you'll have a better. I'm sure you'll have a better insight on that to me. What do you think?
No, I agree with you. I think because they're so used in terms of the volume of traffic that they get through, it's like Twitter that you mentioned before. I think it's hard to find the diamond in the rough, isn't it? Like you don't know what is reliable and what you need to just skim over. So when you're kind of challenged with that versus the other websites which we've mentioned and the podcast which we've mentioned so far, of course you go to the others. You wouldn't spend time trying to get that information from Facebook or Insta. So yeah. So but I mean, if anyone does know any great places to get information, then
Please
hit us up.
Yeah, please tell us by all means.
Correct us. Great. So that's our news sites done. Let's move on to YouTube channels. So do you want to kick us off with Let's Talk FPL? What do you think of this?
Well, I mean,
him.
Well, I mean, what I would say about YouTube in general is I love YouTube. Like I probably consume more content on YouTube than any other platform nowadays, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. It's like I think it's taking over YouTube. I would say it's the fastest growing one, and it's because of how easy it is to browse content on there and upload content for the creators, sort of short and big. It's got the full cocktail of what makes a great platform, I think. Because with podcasts are fantastic. Like you say, you go for a run or going on a trip or a walk, or have it on in the background while you're cooking for like an hour. But YouTube has those, but it also has the 5-10 minute short videos of a captaincy, 3 best captains, or you know what I mean? Whereas a podcast wouldn't create that. So I absolutely love YouTube. And again, we're starting with probably what I don't know if this is my favorite, but he's definitely my most watched because of how regular and how professional he is with creating the content. And that's the Let's Talk Andy at Let's Talk FPL. He's one guy. He works for the Fantasy Football Scout, but he also has his own separate channel called Let's Talk FPL. I think it's the second most followed FPL related channel actually. after another guy we'll talk about. But yeah, Andy, I think he's successful because he's a very down to earth regular dude. Just such a standard guy, really nice guy, comes across really well, but doesn't come across flashy or arrogant or any of those things, and just gives his honest thoughts, and that's what you want from a guy like that. And he's a very, very, very good FPL player. I think he was in the top 1K fairly recently. I don't know if he's just dropped out of it, but yeah, fantastic FPL manager, very likable guy. And as you want with YouTube, and especially in lockdown, you want those regular updates. And I think he posts 3 or 4 videos a week, which is ideal as a complete content addict like myself.
Yeah, no, I think I don't watch YouTube as much as I listen to the podcast, just because that's my preferred platform, because I'm often doing things when I'm trying to listen to the
You're an intellectual, aren't you? You're an intellectual.
I think I'm just
scummy. Yeah, you're. It's okay to say.
You're a visual learner. I'm an an audiological learner. That's all it is. But yeah, the parts that I have watched, I think it's apparent straight from the beginning how knowledgeable he is. Also, he shows visuals and stats from a lot of the other resources that we've mentioned. It's clear how he's so deeply embedded in all of this that we're talking about now, and a perfect example of how, if you take a few of these resources, you can gather a pretty good picture quite quickly. But I think as well, what I found him to be is, in such a short period of time, which compared to the podcasts, he's so good at picking out key topics and key questions for the upcoming 1, 2, 3 or 4 game weeks. He covers all the essential things that people would have, like the top kind of 3 questions they'd have about their team, or the fixtures, or who to captain, whatever. And that's a pretty good gift, really, considering it's a one-way flow of information, isn't it? So
he's got the knack for sure. And he's another good thing about YouTube is they'll occasionally do sort of live streams where they'll have the people commenting live as they're talking. And he's just got the perfect balance of engagement with the chat, but also just slaps down people who are trolling him. He's very good at that as well. He just doesn't take any. I think the other day, or the other week or whatever, he sort of joked about who he was going to bring in, and then the deadline passed and he revealed his team, and it was a different player that he said. And loads of people in the chat going, "Oh, you've picked the wrong person. You said you'd pick this. I've been copying your team and you've screwed me over." And he was just like, "Mate, what are you get a life." Like, it's a game, and you shouldn't be copying my team anyway, that kind of thing. And just didn't let it bother him. Whereas I think a lot of people on social media would worry about having let someone down like that, whereas he didn't, which is great. Yeah, Andy, really good YouTube channel.
Gold star.
Yeah.
Okay, next we have FPL tips. So me being the non-YouTube consumer, I don't know. Tell me about FPL tips. Who is this? Is it one person? Is it multiple people?
So yeah,
give me that.
FPL tips. So he's probably the OG YouTuber, FPL YouTuber. So he has the most follows on YouTube of any fantasy YouTuber. But he's brilliant because you never see his face. All his videos are about 3 or 4 minutes long, and they're just super simple. An update of how his team's gone, what he's going to do for the next week. And I think another type of video is the 3 best captains for the week. And that's it. That's all he's ever done for years and years and years. Built up a following because they're so clean, super clean graphics on the videos, bite-sized, tiny videos, no fat whatsoever, like no fat, all just information. Nice little music in the background as he's going through his team, done and dusted. And it's just a beautiful little example of how YouTube can be great for long form content, but also brilliant for bite-sized short content. And he's an amazing FPL player as well. He's with a ridiculous history. So yeah, he's the perfect cocktail really of what he's a poster boy really of what YouTube can do for a good FPL content creator. yeah, I'd definitely check him out. Definitely. I'd say he's essential essential FPL viewing.
Let me just note him down in my pad.
Yeah, there you go, Josh.
I thought you were describing Sia at the beginning there. Never see the face, 3 to 4 minute videos with one-liners.
Yeah.
Great. FPL tips. Another top tip for YouTube channels. Next, we've got Scout and Hub.
Yeah, so just clumping these together really, because as I've said, they're very different. They're distinct platforms, obviously, but very similar in terms of their size and what they do. And the main thing they do on YouTube is upload their podcasts that we've talked about already. But they do have unique videos that they post up there. So a really good one is the best captain that the Scout do. So they have a dedicated long video on who are the captaincy options for this week, where I think Dave and the host, who I should know his name, Dave and the host go through the in quite really good level of detail, go through the captaincy options for the week, which is a great watch. And they also do a really good one on Friday that covers all the press conferences that happened on the Thursday. Just two of them chat through all the news that there is. So again, really good detail. Again, it's not the most entertaining, like they're just dudes, they're just guys like us really into FPL. So they're not like natural on-screen entertainers, but they are really nice guys, come across well and deliver great, really useful information. And same goes for the Hub.
So you're looking at your audience members that just want to go for information. If you want the facts, that's where you go.
Just want the facts, just want the cold hard facts, go Scout and Hub, yeah. FPL tips, facts. Brilliant for bite-size expert following of one team. And then Let's Talk FPL is like, if you want daily content, he's the man to follow. If you want to watch YouTube every day on it, go for Andy.
Great. I don't want any entertainment. I just want FPL
directly,
intravenously into my veins.
This isn't about a laugh, is it? It's not about having a good time, FPL. It's about cold, hard figures.
It's about bragging rights for the game week. Exactly. That's what it is.
That is exactly what it's about. Exactly. Jeez.
Great. Okay. So that wraps up YouTube channels. Next, we are looking at Twitter. So we've got a few accounts to cover. You're just going to want to follow all of them, I think, because it's just so easy to do that. But we're going to start at the top with, I'm not going to steal this from you, but you've labeled him as the fixtures legend, which I think is
legend.
Pretty true. It's the man himself, Ben Crellin.
Ben Crellin, yeah. So if you're just going to follow one account on Twitter, if you're just going to open it, make an account, follow one, and just make yourself follow one, like some people tend to do, don't they? Because they want to be seen to have one followed.
It's boring James followers, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah. That's him. Follow two accounts. Follow Boring James on this one.
Yeah.
No, but Ben Crellin is the guy on Twitter for FPL. So the reason for that is he has a knack for predicting 20-30 weeks into the future of when the blank game weeks and the double game weeks will be. So even before the official fantasy site updates it. So he can look into the future with the cup fixtures, what games have been postponed, when they're likely to get postponed to, and comes out with this amazing spreadsheet that he gives that's a globally accessed spreadsheet of which teams exactly blank and when they double. And it's just that if any piece of resource is going to give you an edge over your casual friends in your leagues, it's this piece of content, because you can plan your players knowing there's a blank game week. You can sell them 5 weeks before, whereas on the FPL website, they might only put that blank game week on 2 weeks before. But yeah, he's an absolute genius, rarely ever gets it wrong, and just a fantastic resource to use. Yeah. Do you follow him?
Yeah, I mean, you got to. I think, like you said, if you want to evolve from the type of player who looks at 1 to 2 game weeks to kind of 4, 5, 6, or maybe even further, you have to follow him. It's like, if you're a grandmaster at chess who's playing like 10 moves ahead, it's probably Ben Crellin who's telling them what moves to make if FPL was chess.
No doubt. He's the guru. He's the man. Indeed.
Don't know what his
Just
face.
follow him.
Don't know what his face looks like. To be fair, I think
No,
his
I think,
picture's on there.
yeah, I think his profile picture is of him, but maybe a bit
If
far
I saw
away.
him on the street, I know to thank the guy.
He has appeared on podcasts before, I think, in some of the podcasts we mentioned, like a very rare appearance. But I think Who Got the Assist guys had him on. But yeah, brilliant guy.
Excellent. So yeah, that's a must. And then another Ben, but this time Dinnery.
Yeah, Ben, the two Bens. So Ben Dinnery is like Ben Crellin, but for injury news. So he doesn't claim to be fantasy football based, to be fair to him. He's just I think he works for a company that specialises in injury updates of athletes. But he is the man with the finger on the pulse of which players are injured, how long are they injured for. So it'll come out. He's often the source of the injury news that gets spread around Twitter or Reddit or the community generally. So if you follow him, you've got your finger on the source. And if you hear a rumor about a player, but he's not mentioning it, then it's likely it's bollocks. And he's great at responding. If people ask him what to deal with this, he'll respond as well. So that's another good thing.
Yes, because you can't rely on looking at actual football players' FPL accounts anymore, considering that it looks like the FPL teams have stopped them from doing that.
Yes.
So you need
Dean
to rely
Smith.
on Ben. Cheers, Dean. Thanks, Dean.
Yeah, Dean Smith, Jack Grealish, what on our bed. But yeah, definitely follow him for that sort of news. Because just speaking generally on Twitter, so much false information gets swarmed around there. Much more so than somewhere like Reddit because of that. Because Reddit just naturally filters out the bullshit, whereas people can spread and circulate rumors on Twitter. If someone's got a high following and decides to make up something, then that can happen. That especially happened or used to happen a lot more with the lineup leaks before they moved the deadline back half an hour. So the FPL deadline used to be exactly when the first team sheet got released, didn't it? So I think last year especially, loads of these team leak accounts. People realize if you leak a lineup, you'll get a load of followers instantly. So people would just make up a lineup, hope it's correct, get a load of followers, and then claim to be a guru, wouldn't they? So that is that. We haven't actually got them written down, but I should have written them down. So I'd say these three are the ones to follow. So there's a guy called FPL Rockstar, and he's now known really as the only reliable lineup leaker when he gets information. And he doesn't leak every lineup at all. He'll just say when he has a leak, and he's never ever wrong. It's mainly Liverpool, to be fair to him, that he gets. I think he does have a source in Liverpool, but yeah, he's the one to do for lineup leaks.
So we've got fixtures legend, an injury legend, and a lineup legend.
That's it. That's the bread and butter. That's what you need, really.
The two Bens and FPL Rockstar sorted.
Yeah.
But we do have more. There is more, and
there's loads more.
We come back to a name which we've mentioned already. Give them another salute. It's the FPL General.
Yeah, we've already said everything we said about his podcast goes for his Twitter account. Really good, really good. He's active on Twitter quite a lot. Fantastic. Give him a follow. Same goes for the Scout and the Hub. Again, they're in all of these because they're across every platform. But the guys on the Scout and the Hub will be they're good because they engage with the community. They post polls. They ask questions. They engage. They respond to stuff. So that's what I like about these guys, that they do a lot to foster the community rather than just pump out content and link to those content on Twitter. They actually do engage. So I think that's important on Twitter.
Perfect. So that finishes up our recommendations for Twitter accounts to follow. Lastly, we're going to cover online tools, and we're going to start with FPL Gameweek.
Cool. FPL Gameweek. Yeah. So this one, I've only discovered FPL Gameweek, I think last year I discovered it, but it makes the Fantasy Premier League website itself completely redundant. I only ever go to the Fantasy Premier League site to make my transfer, set my team up, and then I leave it. During a game week, I'll never check it because of it just doesn't update as quickly as FPL Game Week. It obviously doesn't update any bonus points instantly. It doesn't show auto subs until the game week is finished. It doesn't update the leagues quickly. Like you have to wait till the game week's finished till the leagues update. So I used to do all that, and you just had to calculate in your head, okay, have I beat this guy? When did his guy in the bench will come on, and then but then he'll not come on. But there's a bonus point here that's going to be added. So FPL Gameweek just does all that for you. So it just has your league. You can log in. You don't log in. You just put in your ID, your FPL ID. Go to the page. It gives you this lovely dashboard. It has all the teams in the league. You pick the league your mini league you want to look at. All the teams in those league. Click on any team, and it brings up a comparison with your team. Shows you which players they have and you don't have. But I think my favorite feature of it is it shows you how important the players in your team are in terms of getting points in your league. So if everyone owns Salah in your league, Salah has a 0% rating of importance in your league, because if he scores, then everyone gets a point. Whereas if you've got Ollie Watkins and only 5 players out of 40 have Ollie Watkins, then I've given myself difficult maths to do there. But he's 5, he is much more weighted in importance than Salah would be. So you then know, okay, which of my players am I actually rooting for here? Because if Salah scores, then I don't really give a shit. But if Ollie Watkins scores, oh my God, yes, I've really gotten a relative boost on my other team. So that's another feature. It's got loads of stats. It shows you who's played every chip in your league. It shows you the top 10K, your players compared to the top 10K. It shows you your live rank, your overall rank, based on how your players are doing now. Any player that's missed a game that's in your starting lineup, it automatically brings in the sub that will come on for them, so you know your live points. You can filter the league by the game week points, by how many points they've got this month, so you know who's doing better for the month and for the week. It's basically everything that the official site should be, and it's miles ahead of it. So I really cannot recommend it enough. That was a long rant, but I'm very passionate about FPL Gameweek. I think it's the best thing ever.
I know. I mean, I think you've described it as the GOAT in our notes, and that description is exactly why it is the GOAT. So there's nothing more I can add. The only thing in addition that I found pretty useful is it's really easy to switch between your mini leagues as well, with all of that information easily accessible. So I can't remember if you mentioned that, but that's there as well, so that if you had vested interest in many, then you can easily switch and do all of those things that you just mentioned.
Yeah, there's nothing on the main web, the official site, that gives you more than what this site gives you. You click on every fixture, it shows you the bonus points. There's a live feed, so whenever something happens that affects your point total, it gives you that. So if you've got DS, he gets a yellow card, it'll pop up in the feed, the live feed, and it'll tell you the effective impact of that. So I've just, as it happens, we're recording as Man City are playing now. DS has played over 60 minutes. So it says, okay, you got +1 point, but your impact is plus 0.7 points because other people have DS. So it's I just love it. I just absolutely love it. There we go.
As a stats man, I can tell it's
a dream.
It's one for you.
Indeed.
So it seems sad to mention this directly after FPL Gameweek, but Anupla?
Anupla. I don't know how to pronounce it. Anupla, maybe?
Yeah, I don't know. I just put Anupla, but Anupla would probably make more sense.
I don't know what PLA would stand for, but yeah, but Anupla does a similar thing. Yeah, maybe. Does a similar thing to, and it was there before FPL Gameweek, and it was my go-to for the league, but it gives a nice filterable table for your mini league. Shows you how, so you can filter it by who's taken the most hits, who's got the most points for the week. And it is a live update like FPL Gameweek, so it's better than what you see on the Premier League site. Only issue is it has been completely eclipsed by FPL Gameweek. There is a nice tool on there that gives you some stats for you as a manager yourself for your whole season, which is quite nice. Some nice graphs of how your season's getting on compared to the average and things. So it is nice for that. But I would say FPL Gameweek has sort of made it a bit redundant, sadly. But a legend of a site because it's been around for so long. So worth a mention.
Yeah, like you said, it's a shame It's a shame, and obviously a bonus to us that
Yeah.
FPL Gameweek is there because it's so good.
Yeah.
Next, we've got Game Change. Tell
Game
us about Game
Change. So
Change.
this is a shameless plug. So this is actually my website that I built originally to write some game reviews on, but I dabbled a bit with the FPL API, which is like the effectively, as a developer, you can summon data and call data from the FPL database using certain endpoints URLs. So I just dabbled with it, and I've put together some tools on there. They're all pretty standard tools. The most popular one is the what if machine. So it shows you if you'd left your team completely alone from day one, how many points you would be on if you just left it. Because I found that was a common question managers ask themselves. Should I make these transfers, or what if I just fucking leave it? If I hadn't made that transfer, that player scored more. So it shows you that accumulated throughout the season. And that's proved quite popular. Obviously, the tools I've made really are just gimmicks there. So there's a what if machine, there's a league that shows you your mini leagues what if scores if you just left them and who'd be top of your league. There's like a you versus the average score each week graph, and you can one where you can compare against a single other player, things like that I've just dabbled with. But yeah, the what if machine has easily been the most popular one, and yeah, people seem to find that kind of morbidly fascinating to check out.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I'm not just saying that because you're
Thanks,
talking with me, but when you care so much like we do, and like so many people do, but FPL, you just want some fun stuff every now and again as well, and a lot of those things are just really fun things to do. Although your heart is in your mouth a little bit when you press that generate button with the
you
what
don't
if
want to
machine,
see it.
because
You don't want to see
if you were better off not making any transfers, then that is a sad day.
Exactly, man.
Cool. So next we have FPL Guru. I don't use this, so hit me up. Give me the lowdown.
Yeah, this is a really nice one. It's recently been remade, but it just had really nice visual stats based on your own team, and it showed you how little graphs showing you how you've done, how your overall rank has gradually fared over the season, how you've done against the average over the season, how your captain stats have been over the season compared to the average. And a really nice feature is how your transfers have done over the season. So how have they given you plus points or negative points compared to how they would have done? So when you played your wild card, how many points has that given you since then? Or how many points has it taken away? So it's a really good, just a really again, it's not like, wow, this is in-depth analysis, but it's just fun. It's a bit like the game change stuff where it's just fun facts about how your season's going. Yeah, then that's it. Really worth a check. Really clean site. Really nice site to look at.
Lots of visuals for our visual learners out there.
That's why I like it.
You're repping.
That's why I like it, Josh.
I knew it. Perfect. And there we go. So that's all the resources covered so many different things to pick up on there. Lots for people to look into, ready for the next FPL season. So yeah, the caveat that we'd like to add in is obviously this is some of our favorites, our go-tos, but there's lots of other resources out there that we haven't covered, maybe because we're not as familiar with them, or because they're not our favorite, basically. But that's basically all the ones we want to share with everyone. And Jack, any other comments for our listeners out there?
Yeah, no, good to sort of vent our thoughts on them. I would say now the season has ended, there are more every year, aren't there? There are just way more every year that get popped out. At the end of this season, people tweeting out resources that sort of gave end of season summaries that I'd never heard of. So it was, keep your ear to the ground on Twitter, on Reddit. More and more people are interacting with the API, making their own tools, making new podcasts, making new sites. And every year there's more and more good stuff. So we'll probably do another one of these next summer, and there'll be a whole new array of resources that we've been using through the year. But good stuff.
Find some more hidden gems.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. So that's it from us, and tune in next time, I guess.
Yeah. Cheers, guys. Thanks, Josh.
Cheers. Thanks, Jack. See you.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.